For today's video, I'm going to start off with a question for you guys. What is it that you love? For me, it's my mother, udon, tteokbokki. It's Korean rice cakes. Then they're covered in like spicy sauce. That shit's fire. Pasta, coffee. Why is it all food? The point is, even amongst all of those things, there are some things that I just love even more. Yes, even more than my own mother. And you know what that is? Dark horses. And not in like a racist sense. Like, I'm no equestrian? Equestrian. Hold on. Bitches who ride horses. An equestrian. I am no equestrian. Neither a racist one either. But what I am, though, is a sucker for a great underdog story. And if you were paying attention to regional finals, you would know, holy fuck, we got a couple of underdogs. And not only that, one of them tend to shine brighter than all of the others. And who am I talking about today? It is Jukyu, who, if you don't know who he is, because I had no idea who he was. Who the fuck is this guy, actually? I don't even know. I can't even give you like an introduction to this guy. I looked over to this guy's Twitter page. It just has a Twitter bio. It says, challenger since set 3. That's all we got. I don't have any other way to introduce this guy. And yet this guy, he won regional finals. The whole thing. He won the whole tournament. Not only that, his average placements for the last day of the tourney on day 3 averaged like a 2.8, 2.7 even. He didn't go anything lower than a third the entirety of day 3. I didn't do the exact math. I don't remember exactly what the number was. I don't know what his average placement was. But I mean, if you're averaging above a third, that's insane. And on top of that, he is the most flexible player I've ever seen. You would think that if he won regional finals as a dark horse, you would think that maybe he just high rolled throughout the entire day. Nah. In fact, he's actually quite the opposite. This man actually knew how to take really interesting and weird spots and just make them work. He is probably the most flexible TFT player I've ever seen. And I believe, according to Froden from the main broadcast, you can correct me about the statistic if I'm wrong, I believe out of 14 of the 17 games in the tournament, he just played a unique comp. And unique as in he didn't play this comp ever again throughout the entirety of the tourney, which is insane. He played 14 different comps throughout the entirety of the tourney. That is absurd. I've never even heard of such a statistic before. That is absolutely insane. So in today's video, we're going to be going over one of his games from day 3 of the tourney where, I mean, he just played such an obscure line. He actually played multiple obscure lines, so I might be making multiple videos about this guy. But without further ado, let's go ahead and VOD review a little bit of Jukyu's gameplay, because this guy, phenomenal talent, and I cannot wait to watch him compete at Worlds. Alright, so here we are. We are in Jukyu's perspective. This is, I believe, the first game of day 3. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry, I gotta get my morning right with my espresso in a can. But anyways, starting off here, we are getting a bow component. I mean, it's always been one of the best components in the game. Opens up, especially in this meta, Shiv for TF, Shiv Morgana, Last Whisper for Jhin. Every time I try to record something, you know, I'm done. We're gonna power through this, okay? I've had to restart this recording multiple times because some siren is going off outside in the background, whatever. Anyways, moving on. Checks his admin here, 66% HP. Admin's gain 60% AD. This is a very niche augment to be taking. In general, it's really good for Camille reroll. It's good for Warwick, kind of. But it's a really difficult admin to activate, so it's definitely not something that you would see very commonly. Now, if you've been a viewer of mine, you know that this is a Camille game. You know that this is a Camille game. It's a little difficult because your components are not that great for it. Morello is actually great because in the hacker comp, you do end up playing Pyke. So Pyke is actually an incredibly great Morello holder. So that's actually a slam that you could do. Probably doesn't save you that much HP, but it does lock you in pretty early into the game. And I think he only has one Camille at the moment. Sure, he does have a really strong AD admin, but does he want to play the Camille line? It's a little difficult, right? You typically, if you had at least one slam for the Camille, maybe you could look into it. But right now, it doesn't even give him a Camille 2. It's a little hard. So I can understand his hesitance and not wanting to run it. But you can see his mouse hovering over a little bit. He's thinking about it. Really fun line. Really, really great line. Doesn't win out a lot of lobbies, but definitely it's a very consistent top 4 if you know how to play the line correctly. But again, that line requires you to strongboard early game. And I think he realizes his early game board is actually pretty weak. So he's going to start rerolling here. None of these are great options for the current components that he has, so he's probably just going to reroll here again, and we hit your cut. Channel Ferromancy, get excited. Now, He's only got 10 seconds left on the clock, and if he rerolls, he's got 2 more rerolls left, but, I mean, at this point, you might as well just commit to something, right? Before your time runs out and you're absolutely screwed. Channel Ferromancy is okay. You could maybe have a Ginsu, potential Shiv, Gunblade for Kaisa. Not the greatest, though. Your cut is actually really, really nice because it's sort of like an eco augment almost. It's basically Trade Sector on steroids. Plus, this actually keeps really meta lines open, such as Jin, such as Vex reroll as well. And like I said before, Pyke is one of the best, not the best, but he's definitely like top 3 Morello holders in the game. It's like Fiddlesticks, Nico, and then Pyke. Yeah, I'm gonna stand by that. Pyke is probably the top 3, right? So he could quite honestly, if wanted to, because he could slam Morellos from the spot. I understand the hesitation because the idea that slamming Morellos at 2-1 is going to save you some level of HP is like wishful thinking almost, right? Usually what ends up happening is that Morello is great in the late game because you need an anti-heal option, but throughout the early game, you usually don't really need it. Like, it's not that high of a priority. So slamming Morellos, like, does it really save you any HP? Probably not. If he slammed the Morellos here, would he have saved some level of HP? Probably not. So as we can see, like, he is hesitating, right? It's like, I don't really know if I want to commit to the Morellos so early, right? Because you're using up an offensive component that could be something like a Gunblade, something like a Rabadon's, something like a Guard Breaker, and instead you're sort of committing it to a utility item that doesn't show a lot of value until later on into the game, where again, anti-heal is way, way more prevalent than anything else. Now, going into the carousel here, what are we thinking about, right? What items are we thinking about? Well, what lines are we thinking about? From this spot, you can see that he's holding Malphite and Nasus on his bench. So, and Rammus as well. So if you don't know, that's very indicative of potentially playing into a mascot line. He actually doesn't make economy here because he wants to hold everything. Plus, he has all these upgrades. Ends up taking the spat plus a belt on Pyke. This probably means it's a mascot spat. If you don't know, in the mascot line, I mean, mascot is such a strong line. And not only that, Pyke is one of the best mascot emblem holders because you not typically, but you do sometimes get to end up 3-starring him. But surprisingly enough, he does hit a Warwick at 2-5. Kind of a dirty high roll almost, but manages to hit the Warwick at 2-5 because he pre-leveled the round before, and now he's just playing a really strong laser board. So now our direction is a little weird, you know what I mean? Here we see he has Bo ends up taking the Crick Glove as well for last Whisper for Warwick, which is very interesting. This is actually still potentially a mascot game because last Whisper could end up getting slammed onto Jin, but I mean, there could have been an argument made for making a Shiv instead and just committing straight into a Warwick line, but you would be stuck with Pyke on your board, so you'd be playing the hacker version of Lasercorp, which, if you don't know, is not that strong compared to other ways of playing Warwick. Usually you play with Brawlers, usually you play with Sure Shots, and the hacker line for Lasercorp, not as popular, so if you can avoid it, try to avoid it if you can, and if you commit into Hacker Warwick so early on, it could just spell death for you throughout the end of the game. So, at the very least, he at least made 10 gold by 2-7. But as you may have guessed, his economy super fucked. So he really needs to try to make it back. And you might notice that whenever you're playing these trade sector, these sort of free shop refreshes, whatever you want to call them, augments, it can be difficult to maintain economy because you just keep hitting so many units and pairs that you want to hold on to and so many upgrades. But that's okay. The idea is that you're going to try and rebuild your economy through a streak, right? And as we can see here, even though he's only on a 2-win streak, at least the idea is that he's going to try to start streaking from, well, technically 2 rounds ago, right? As soon as he hit that Warwick, he's going to try to streak for as long as he can. Now, this is looking like a Warwick game, though. He ends up slamming the Morellos because he needs to slam something. He's sitting on 4 components. Ends up slamming the Morellos, which is a fine option, right? And again, it probably won't save you too much HP, 2 at max, maybe 4. But, I mean, he's got to slam something, right? You can't just be sitting on 4 components forever. Here, he hits Ancient Archives, which is pretty great. Really good chance that he's probably looking for the Warwick Augment, right? We'll see the way that he tailors his board here. Ends up hitting 4 admin as well, so he's looking at his 4 admin. So, actually, the gain 60% AD here is actually pretty nice as well. He ends up taking it. And this is really great because once that Warwick hits 66% HP, 120% bonus damage for AD is crazy. Plus, here he has Ashe 2, Yasuo 2, Renekton 2, and I mean, his board is looking really, really strong here. It's looking like a really for sure laser game, right? So, even though it's looking like a for sure laser game, again, it's sort of deviating away from the original plan. You can see he's sold all the mascots already. He's already not thinking about mascots anymore. He's probably thinking about hitting that Lasercorp emblem. You had 6 Lasercorp, sure, you're playing Hacker Warwick, but at least you have 6 laser, right? But unfortunately, he actually misses Lasercorp. And actually, we can even rewind that a little bit because that did go a little bit faster. But if we look at the augment choices that he had for this tome, Hacker, Sure Shot, Mecha Prime Defender. Hacker is the only takeable option here. You can't really take anything else. Sure, we did say earlier that Sure Shot was in fact an option for playing around while, you know, playing with Lasercorp. But the problem is that, again, he has a pike that he needs to somehow utilize on his board. And usually, especially, you know, when you're trying to play for placements, it's not good practice to ignore your hero augment. So if try to find a way to keep this pike on his board, he's going to end up playing Hacker Warwick. And he's surprisingly enough playing 4 Hacker with the Hacker emblem. And again, if you remember from the Camille video from a while back, 4 Hacker is really, really strong. 4 Hacker is the old 3 Hacker. The AI is a bit different because they changed the targeting, but the statistically speaking is the exact same stuff. 20% Omni event for Hackers, 15% for the Rider. And crazy enough, because the Hacker emblem is on Warwick, this Warwick already has 35% Omni event. He has what's even better than a Bloodthirster. So where are we going from here? Right? We can see he picks up the cloak from Carousel. Bit of an odd choice. Could be maybe Bloodthirster for Warwick. Could be maybe Runeance for Warwick. It's fine as well. But they're not the best of options, right? So what are we looking for here, right? What are we thinking about? Don't get it twisted. He's not trying to play for either of those items. He's playing for an admin spat to play for admin. So now we're playing a 4 Hacker, 4 admin board. We don't even have Lasercorp in. We're playing Warwick admin Hacker, not Lasercorp, admin Hacker. Very unique. Very unique stuff. And again, you can see that, you know, he's really just trying to play around whatever he hits and really trying to play around whatever is flexible, whatever is his strongest board, and constantly iterating and trying to find any line that allows him to pull out as much power as he can while playing these lines. If you told me that somebody would be playing 4 Hacker, 4 admin Warwick in Termi, I would say you're insane. But here we are, and, you know, it's working, you know? Which is, actually, it's not working. And it's not working, you know why? Because it's not actually not that strong of a line. But if he hits the Warwick 2, his board will be online. This is actually sort of a general trend that you'll see with a lot of 4 costs, a lot of 5 costs, is that their 1-star version is not very strong. Which is why there's a very heavy emphasis on trying to get these units upgraded as soon as possible. If you can't get this Warwick 2-star, this Warwick is worse than a 3-star version, or a 2-star version of a 3 cost, right? Here we're getting the roll down here, and again, like you can see, like this Camille is probably actually stronger than this Warwick. In my opinion, I would argue that's probably the case. Because again, 2-star Camille is probably stronger than a 1-star Warwick. So 1-star Warwick, again, if this is your primary carry, this thing's really, really weak. It's very not too strong. So here, as we can see, he's only 1 Warwick off, and you can see he actually rolled all the way down to 10 gold. Why did he roll down all the way down to 10 gold? Isn't he trying to go level 8 to try to hit the Warwick? We'll talk about it right after these augments, okay? So here, he refreshes because none of the augments are takeable. Takes Verdant Veil. Fair enough, right? We should probably just talk about that real quick. Why are these not takeable? Stands very obvious. He only has 3 traits active. Not good. Woodland Charm. No primary tank. No reason to take it. CB3. Makes no sense. We're playing 4 Hacker. Our primary carry has what, like, I think it's like 45% Omnivamp or something like that. Some absurd, some ridiculous number. Makes no sense to take CB3. Lucky Gloves makes no sense. Level Up makes no sense. We just roll down our money. Verdant Veil is the only correct option here. And that's what we take. And so you might be wondering, okay, what's the game plan from here? He's 42 HP, but he's still sitting on Warwick Pair. He's had Warwick Pair since level 6, actually. So as soon as he hit level 7, he rolled down. And to roll down your money at 7 for one specific 4 cost, it's not terrible. And it's actually not even bad practice. If you remember during set 7, during Dragonlance, there was actually a very common meta of going 3-5 and sending it down to just try to hit a specific dragon, a specific 7 cost, which is the same odds as 4 costs. So the idea being is that, like, if you're trying to play back then a Siphon board or a Deja board, which these are just the name of the different dragon units, you would only need 1 to get your board online. So the idea is that you would just 3-5 level 7, send it down, and just try to hit at least one of them that you're looking for. And typically, looking for one specific 4 cost that you need on a level 7 roll down, if you know you have to send it all the way down, it's not bad practice. And in fact, it's actually pretty reasonable. Here, he doesn't really want... obviously, he needs to upgrade his board in the meantime. His rolling is still very efficient. But he also knows that if he can get this Warwick 2 online, he's going to be in a much better position, and he will probably keep losing and won't be able to go level 8 unless he hits the Warwick. And this is something that a lot of players struggle with, especially in lower elos, where they're scared to roll down on 7, right? But if it makes sense and your position calls for it, you have to do it, because he was 42, now 34 HP. There's no way that he can go level 8, hit a Warwick 2, and then try to win out. He actually preserves more HP in the long term by trying to hit this Warwick 2 as soon as possible. And here we can see he finally hits it at 4-3, even though he's been rolling since 4-1, trying to hit this Warwick 2. But at least he finally hits it, and now he can finally eco and try to go level 8. But again, if he were to wait until he goes level 8, he'd be like 10 HP. And then he finally gets to roll down, trying to hit that Warwick 2. It's just not worth it. It makes no sense, right? So he actually preserves more HP in the long term by, again, rolling down on 7, and then trying to go level 8 after. And this is, again, really strong fundamentals, really great understanding of the game. Here, he picks up the IE because, like we said before in the last video, triple item your carry as soon as you can. By doing so, you are in a much better spot during, especially the early to mid game. And if by 5-1 your carry doesn't have triple items, you're kind of screwed. So here, even though it was on a 1-cost Silas, we are finally Warwick 2. Our entire board's upgraded, really, because thanks to your cut. 5 Hacker, because he's actually using Riftwalker to add an extra hacker trait onto the board, which is very, very smart. Good stuff. This is exactly what we would see actually in the Camille board. And here we are. We're playing a 5 Hacker 4 admin Warwick board. This board is nutty. This is dank. This is really, really dank. And quite honestly, though, it's almost like, can you win with this board now? Is the real question here, right? 5 Hacker is surprisingly not that bad if you look at the stats. It's averaging, I believe, somewhere around a 4.16. I will need to double check that. But let's see if I go into Masters real quick. And then if I check the statistics, the UI is bugged. So it won't let me go into Masters. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. Fixed it. And if I just go into trades and I hit Prognostics and then look up Hacker. Sorry. 5 Hacker averages a 3.89 actually in Masters Plus. So when the line is offered, you might as well try to run with it. And as we can see here, he's actually doing so. And surprisingly enough, it actually has a very high top 4 rate and a decent win rate. It's 61% top 4 rate, 18% win rate, which is very respectable actually. So quite honestly, it's looking like a really, really good spot for Jukyu. And as we can see on the right hand side here, he is HP wise doing all right. Malala's already out of the count, or down for the count rather, whatever the saying is. And look at this stuff. Look at these slams. Oh my god, can we just rewind for a second? Look at these slams. Look at the decision making here. This is so interesting. He gets the anvil here, right? He has rod, sword, chain, belt. He knows he doesn't want to make Sunfire because he knows for a fact that he has a Morello on his pike, right? So what items are we looking for here, right? Personally speaking, well, actually, I guess the better way to put this is whenever you're trying to figure out your itemization, you need to think about, okay, what do I need to prioritize here, right? For him, it's not his tank. His tank is his Zac, right? And there's no reason to prioritize the tank items here, especially with offensive components. So you want to try to lean more into, or since you lack defensive components, you're leaning offensively. So you want to be thinking about, okay, what components do I want to make in order to, you know, try to make as many offensive ones as possible and then put them on my secondary carry instead, because again, we're not really prioritizing our tank here. We're playing Hacker. So wouldn't you think that you would take Crit Glove here? The Sparring, sorry. That way you make Guard Breaker Gunblade and you could throw that onto Jin. That sounds pretty reasonable to me. I would 1000% actually do that, and that's actually what I would have done. But instead, he takes Crit Glove to make IE, and he builds Locket. What an interesting read. What an interesting read. I don't even have the words to describe why that's better. Maybe his read is that a 2-item Jin will perform worse than just having more ways to buff his Warwick, right? But if that was the case, then why even build the IE on Jin? Why not build the Zeke's Herald, right? Why the Locket Slam? Interesting decision making, and I wish I could have a way to tell you why he chose to do such things, but you know, at the end of the day, maybe the Locket read is better than the double item on Jin. I don't know, because again, his secondary carry is Jin, even though it's like the only other admin. It's not benefiting from admin, right? Which kind of sucks. But now we're seeing that Jukyu is 19 HP. It's looking a little dicey. We're gonna speed it up again. This guy's on Camille 3 as well. He is contested for Warwicks. I mean, it's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough game from here on out, right? And as we can see, like, throughout the fights, though, maybe it was bad matchmaking. Maybe somebody is just really high rolling out of their mind. But finally, Jukyu has hit level 8 It took so long. 5-3. It took him so long to finally hit level 8, but he's finally there. What is there to even roll for, really? He's looking for, like, the tiniest bit of upgrades to throw onto his board here. Maybe Garen, Fiddlesticks over this Alistar. Mascot's probably not that important. Maybe there's a way to tech into Renegades. I kind of doubt it. I can't really think of a way that you would do so from the spot. So he's really just placing his best that this Warwick is enough. Which is crazy, because it's turning out that it outplays Setsuko, it outplays Ripple Overdrive. He's surprisingly making it work. Here, he actually hits the Mascot spat. Good enough, because you know what? You know what this means? It means he gets to drop Alistar. He gets to drop Alistar, keep Mascots in play, and then look for something else to tech in. He has the Garen on bench. Perfect. Now he has Defenders and 2 Mascot. And he's probably going to throw this onto the Pyke, because Pyke is a great Mascot holder. And now, again, just donkey rolling every single round at this point, because he's basically 1 life. I mean, he's technically 2 life, but a really hard loss could put him at 1 life. Maybe not during stage 5, but during stage 6 for sure. And he's just doing his best to keep it up, right? Doing his best to stay alive. And, I mean, hey, it's working. I'm really interested to see what the Jhin damage is here, because it doesn't have Renegade in. But Jhin is also one of those units that doesn't really need Renegade. Sure, it's definitely nice to have. And normally when you play Jhin, you have Renegade sect in. But most of the time, people don't go too deep into the trait. They usually just say, screw it, we'll just play Jhin, and then whatever. And you can totally flex him as an 80 item holder. That's totally okay as well. But I'm curious to see how much damage he's actually doing, because I still feel like over this Locket Slam, I think, you know, getting that Guard Breaker onto Jhin might have been a little stronger. But I digress. I don't know. Maybe the Locket Slam and the effective HP is just a lot higher, and that's okay too. Again, really interesting decision making and very flexible play. Being able to see that this 5 hacker line was available to him is quite interesting. And committing to this Warwick hacker line at like 3-2, even though it's a very obscure niche line, is absolutely insane. And we can see here, he's actually on a 4 win streak now against Robovan, against King of TFT, who are much lower HP than him. Mathematically, though, it's even possible for him to just go 3rd here, because I don't think he beats Replay. He doesn't play DP. They're both playing very meta boards, and they actually hit their units. But Kindle Gem and Robovan, like, look at this. Like, this guy's like, some of these boards are absolutely insane. We have, what is this? This is a Ezreal reroll, Rising Spell Force. He hit everything, almost everything. He's missing he's missing the last quick draw, but he also has double Zephyr, which is fucking nuts. But he has MF1, which is a really big issue. He doesn't have a secondary carry. Then we have Robovan, who's playing, it looks like 4 admin, 4 Lasercorp. This is also a very interesting board. I'm surprised that he decided to play this. He also took Think Fast for Yasuo 3 and the Camille 3. But this is a very interesting board, because normally Camille, he's playing the carry augment, but normally you would play with Hacker. So this is a very interesting line as well. But they're playing, again, pretty off meta boards. The Ezreal one is a little more, it's sort of like an A+ low S tier board, I believe. And still a fantastic board, but it's actually pretty weak against Hacker, because Warwick will just get in the backline and be able to just clean everything, assuming that Warwick is able to just clean the Ezreal immediately. But I think with a little bit of luck, Juki will be able to find himself in a 3rd if that Ezreal player loses against one of the top 2 players, which, as we can see, is not the case. It is now a top 4, though. And I mean, going top 4 here is insane. Like, he did such a fantastic job playing flexibly around whatever he hit. This is some stellar stuff. Going 3rd, I don't think I could pull off going 3rd in this lobby. Sure, when you watch a VOD and review, like, oh, I would have done the same thing. Relax. It's so difficult to see these niche lines in such a competitive high stress lobby. Ezreal lost. But again, like we said before, it's very unlikely that he's able to win against all of the other boards, because again, the other 2 boards, the other 2 players are playing incredibly meta, incredibly strong comps as well, that are sort of less niche, if you will, right? Samira 3 as well. I mean, who's gonna win against Samira 3? No one's gonna win against Samira 3. So there it is. It's going to be a 3rd. His only win condition at this point was hitting Warwick 3. Wasn't able to find it. Totally okay. It's like that sometimes. But as we can see, Juki goes and takes a 3rd. But regardless, like I said before, going 3rd in this lobby is insane. First place is a Samira 3. 2nd is the best you could probably do, unless you also hit that 4-star, the 3-star forecast. But like, quite honestly, he plays this game fantastically. And I think this guy is definitely somebody we need to be on the lookout for, because this guy really knows how to play some good-ass TFT. Anyways, that's the video. Hope you guys learned something. Happy climbing.